person had to take his garbage and put it in his car and drive it over to the dump. So you know how often you like to drive over to the dump to dump your garbage. So what do? You start really packing it in, and it accumulates, and it stinks in it, and all that sort of thing. And you, what? Really? You have that here too? That's horrible. Well, you all smell very clean, I want to tell you. Well, okay, look at public transportation, human services of all kind. Those socialistic, quote, services, public services, are about the only thing that make life somewhat bearable under a raw and ever-aggrandizing corporate capitalism. You hear the free marketeers and you hear the tea baggers say, I don't want to call them Tea Party, I call them tea baggers. You remember they were called tea baggers? And then they discovered something about tea bagging. Oh, we won't get into it. But I continue to call them that. The free marketeers and tea baggers insist that everything works better in the private sector. Yeah, deal with all my life I've been dealing with the private sector that's called publishing world. Deal with that. This is a myth of a profit-driven industry. Try publishing, and you'll see. Manuscripts lost, a misplaced chapter, copy editors who don't even know how to copy it, who are worse spellers than I am, and that's totally inexcusable. I mean, I'm not getting paid for the spelling. They are getting paid for the spelling. I mean, just messed up. I don't want to get into it, but almost every author who's had long years can give you stories about the efficiency of private industry. I have 3 publishing houses now who are not paying me my royalties anymore. Just not paying them. I can't get through to them at all. Not large sums like, $300 here, $700 there, but that's private industry, and it's all that. Okay, so government should be run more like a business, they say. Now, one might wonder how that could be possible. How do you do that? Exactly what businesses should government be run like? The 50,000 firms that go bankrupt every year? Or the large, successful corporations, themselves giant bureaucracies and recipients of billions of dollars in public subsidies? So the government should subsidize itself? What are you talking about? Subsidies, corporations that regularly skirt the law, pay no taxes, and cater only to paying customers, with billions of dollars in salaries going to agency and department heads. If we run government like a business, then who will take care of the costly nonprofit public services that the public and business itself often demands? Operational expenses are generally less in public bureaucracies than in private bureaucracies. Administrative costs for the U.S. government's Medicare program are under 3 cents per dollar. That's socialism in action. Administrative costs for private health insurance are 26 cents per dollar. That's capitalism in action. Poor service at higher expense because the explicit function is to extract profit. Social Security has been a more reliable and less expensive retirement program than private pension plans. A Roper poll asked Americans to estimate the administrative costs of Social Security as a percentage of benefits. So they're so conditioned to think of government programs as inefficient, and Fox News tells them that every day. So these respondents guessed that Social Security administrative costs were about 50%. Actually, only 1% is spent on administration. 1%. That's socialism in action. No big giant bonuses to the top executives. No billions of dollars spent on proposition campaigns or lobbying and such, or advertising and the like. 1%. Administrative costs for private retirement plans are about 13% of annual payments. Public power utilities owned by local governments offer rates averaging 20% less than those charged by private power companies. That's socialism in action. In 1 year, the Palo Alto Public Utility transferred $7.3 million, and the much larger Los Angeles Public Utility $124 million to their respective local governments to be spent on public services. That's socialism in action. Where I live in Northern California, we have a private utility company called PG&E, and it transfers nothing. Nothing goes back to the communities from which it so handsomely profits, and it takes in literally billions of dollars. So one could go on and on. Socialism doesn't work. Well, let's look at this. Supplementary security income, created in 1972, provides a minimum monthly income for the elderly and disabled, along with Social Security payments. I have a very close friend who's seriously disabled, and I've come to have an appreciation for disability insurance. Totally inadequate. I mean, it's not enough for her to survive, and some of us help her. But but it's no joke. It's really no joke. With all this funding, destitution among the elderly and disabled should have dropped with SSI. It did. As inadequate as it was and still is, it does make a big difference. The food stamp program was supposed to substantially reduce hunger and malnutrition. It did. Public housing was supposed to reduce overcrowding and homelessness between 1940 and 1980. It did, and rather dramatically, until Ronald Reagan came in and began cutting the program to pieces, and we started seeing homeless people again. You could tell the younger people, all those beggars in the streets when you go to the various cities, that wasn't a common sight back in the 70s and such. I mean, occasionally you might see a wino in a doorway or something, but that was relatively rare. Today, in Berkeley, I walk downtown. It cost me $2 to take a walk. I got to hand out people along the way. Public housing cuts into profits. It creates a whole stock of housing units that compete with the private supply, helping to dampen rents in the housing market. Rent control did keep millions of units affordable while allowing landlords to make reasonable profits. But landlords don't want to make reasonable profits. They want to make unreasonable profits. They want to make more. They feel they can do so much better without rent control, and they're right. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, was supposed to lower the job fatality rate and create safer work conditions. And it did. It cut job fatalities by half. That's government regulation. That's tens of thousands of people who are alive today who would have been killed, who would have suffered terrible deaths, and their families would have suffered. The business community opposes such programs because they expand the public sector. These programs provide for social needs. They create alternative sources of income, including taxable income. They leave people less desperately competing for jobs at any wage level, less willing to work for miserable wages. Environmental regulations benefit the public with cleaner air and water, but they cut into industry profits. Industries dump their diseconomies, their waste and filth onto the public domain. They don't like government meddling. You see, every dollar I, as a boss, have to spend on stupid things like wage increases, occupational safety, paid vacations, what next? Environmental protections. Every dollar I got to spend on these stupid, crazy things that you crazy liberal nuts in Washington thinking up is one less dollar that I can put in my pocket. And my raison d'etre, my auri sacra fames, tells me that I want those dollars in my pocket. Well, we can appreciate what public programs accomplish when the programs are cut back. Libraries are closed, schools and hospitals are closed, bridges are falling apart, water systems are contaminated for lack of